John had always lived a quiet, solitary life on his Montana ranch, waking before sunrise to tend to the animals and inspect the fences. The mornings were peaceful, almost meditative, with only the sound of the wind and the occasional bird breaking the silence. But one morning, as he walked along the riverbank to check the fencing, he noticed something that made him freeze in place. There, curled up near a clump of reeds, was a small boy, barely more than a child, shivering in the cold. His clothes were torn and filthy, his feet bare and caked with mud, and his thin frame trembled with hunger and fear. The boy looked up at John with wide, fearful eyes, and in that instant, John felt a surge of compassion so strong it almost took his breath away. Without thinking, John approached slowly, speaking softly, "Hey there, you hungry?" The boy nodded weakly, barely able to speak, and whispered, "Hungry, please." John reached into his jacket pocket and offered some granola bars he had brought for himself. The boy took them with trembling hands, eating ravenously. John carried him back to the ranch house, wrapping him in a warm blanket and preparing a hearty stew. As the boy ate, he occasionally glanced up at John with a mixture of suspicion and gratitude, and John felt an unfamiliar tug at his heart. He wondered how the boy had ended up so far from home, alone and suffering. That night, as the boy slept peacefully for the first time in weeks, John sat quietly by the fireplace, reflecting on the strange turn of events. The ranch, once so quiet and orderly, now felt different, heavier with responsibility but also alive with possibility. For the first time in years, John realized that his life might be about to change in ways he could never have imagined, all because of a small, starving child who had appeared at his doorstep on an ordinary morning. The next morning, John awoke to an unusual sound outside the ranch house, a soft, tentative tapping at the gate. Rubbing the sleep from his eyes, he went outside and was stunned by what he saw. 3 small children stood there, identical in every detail, the same dark, curious eyes, the same delicate features, the same timid posture. They were clearly siblings, and instinctively, John knew they were connected to the boy he had rescued the day before. His mind raced as he tried to understand how they had managed to find this remote ranch. The children clutched each other's hands nervously, glancing toward the little boy who had now emerged from the house, blinking sleep from his eyes. The boy immediately ran to them, and the moment their eyes met, a burst of recognition lit up the children's faces. They laughed and cried simultaneously, hugging each other tightly, the sound of relief and joy filling the morning air. John felt a lump in his throat as he watched the reunion unfold, realizing the depth of the boy's loneliness before this moment. He called them closer and offered them food and blankets, which they accepted with quiet gratitude, still holding on to each other as though afraid to let go. As the day progressed, John began to notice the distinct personalities within the group despite their identical appearance. One was bold and curious, exploring the barn and asking questions about the animals. Another was cautious, lingering close to his siblings and observing everything quietly. The third was shy but clever, quietly mimicking the others while quietly learning. John found himself smiling more than he had in years, feeling a warmth he hadn't known was missing in his life. For the first time, his ranch was alive with laughter, chatter, and the chaos that only children can bring, and he knew instinctively that his solitary life had been forever changed. Life on the ranch changed completely. With the arrival of the 3 identical triplets, John had never cared for children before. His days were usually spent with horses, cattle, and the endless routines of ranch life, but now, he found himself juggling feeding, bathing, and entertaining 4 small children. The mornings began with a flurry of activity. The rescued boy insisted on helping with chores, while the triplets ran between the barn, the garden, and the house, giggling and calling to one another in a mix of broken English and gestures. John quickly realized that patience and flexibility were now his most important tools, and slowly, he learned to anticipate their needs. The children, in turn, brought a vibrancy to the ranch that John had never known. They shared stories of their village, of distant relatives, and of the mysterious journey that had somehow brought them to his doorstep. Even with limited language, their laughter and expressions communicated a depth of experience that touched him deeply. They were fascinated by everything on the ranch, from the chickens pecking at the ground to the horses' powerful hooves and gentle eyes. John watched as they learned to ride, to feed the animals, and to help with simple tasks, each day growing more confident and independent. Despite the chaos, John began to feel an unexpected sense of fulfillment. The children were not just surviving, they were thriving. Each one had their own distinct personality. One was adventurous and fearless, always eager to explore. Another was cautious and thoughtful, carefully considering every step. The third was quiet and observant, soaking in every detail. And the boy he had first rescued was becoming the natural leader, protective of his siblings. John started calling them the little stars, because each of them shone brightly in their own way. In their presence, he discovered that family wasn't only defined by blood, but by love, care, and the bonds formed through shared moments, laughter, and trust. As the weeks passed, John watched the children grow stronger and more confident every day. They had settled into a rhythm that made the once quiet ranch feel alive in ways he had never imagined. The mornings were filled with laughter as they chased each other through the fields or helped feed the animals. Evenings were quieter, spent around the fire, with the children sharing stories of faraway places and imaginary adventures. John taught them how to ride horses, mend fences, and care for the animals, guiding them with patience and gentle encouragement. In return, they brought him laughter, energy, and a renewed sense of purpose he hadn't realized he was missing. One evening, the rescued boy quietly tugged John's sleeve and led him to a secluded corner of the ranch. There, the children had worked together to create a small garden, planting seeds and watering them carefully. "For you," the boy said softly, smiling shyly. John felt a lump in his throat as he knelt beside them, realizing that these children, so small and fragile when they first arrived, were now capable of thoughtful gestures of love and gratitude. The garden was a symbol of their resilience, creativity, and the deep bond forming between them and John. Each day brought new discoveries. The children learned to cooperate, to share, and to support each other in ways that amazed John. Even their laughter had a rhythm that seemed to echo through the hills surrounding the ranch, filling the air with warmth and joy. John, who had once considered himself content in solitude, now understood the depth of connection, the kind that comes from nurturing and being nurtured in return. The little stars, as he continued to call them, had transformed his life, their presence teaching him that love could appear in the most unexpected forms and in the most unlikely places. His ranch was no longer just a place of work, it was now a home full of life, hope, and unbreakable bonds. Months passed, and the little stars had become inseparable from John's life. The ranch, once quiet and solitary, now rang with laughter, chatter, and the occasional mischief only children can bring. John had grown into a role he never imagined: protector, teacher, and father figure, and he cherished every moment of it. The children thrived, their health and spirits improving with every passing day, and John marveled at how resilient and resourceful they were. Their bond with him was undeniable. They looked to him for guidance and comfort, and he, in turn, found joy and purpose in their presence. Then, one bright morning, news arrived that shook him to the core. Through a network of aid workers, the children's parents had been located and were on their way. John's heart clenched at the thought of letting them go. Over the months, he had grown deeply attached to each of them: the rescued boy, whose bravery and curiosity had first brought them together, and the three identical triplets, each shining with their own personality. He wondered how he would survive without the chaos, laughter, and love that now filled the ranch. When the parents finally arrived, tears streamed down their faces as they embraced their children. The children clung to John for a moment longer, their faces full of gratitude and love, before reluctantly moving into the arms of their family. John knelt, holding their hands, feeling a mix of joy and sorrow. Though it was hard to let go, he knew their reunion was what mattered most. As he watched them leave, he realized that the impact they had made on his life would never fade. His ranch, his heart, and his perspective on family had been forever transformed. Though the children were gone, the memory of their time together remained a beacon of hope and love, proof that sometimes, fate brings the most extraordinary connections in the most unexpected ways.